my words, not his, found himself on the inner circle of politics today. So he is going to give us a unique insight into what he has found in that arena. But first, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Just we ask you to help us overcome the algorithms that are shadow banning us on Facebook. Click like and click share. Get this out to as many people as you can. We'd really appreciate that. And if you follow us on Rumble or X or Twitch or Kick, subscribe to our channel. It doesn't cost you anything. And what it will do is it will notify you when we add new material. So that's pretty easy too. But I want to get right into our program today, our show today, and tell you a little bit about Pastor Jackson Lahmeyer. He's a key member of the White House Faith Council. He was present when President Trump signed the executive order establishing it and continues to help shape its mission. He founded, as a matter of fact, he founded Pastors for Trump, a nationwide coalition of Christian leaders spanning all 50 states, and serves as lead pastor of Sheridan Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Jackson is the author of Chasing After the Wind, a candid critique of modern platform culture in faith and media, and is widely known for his advocacy on election integrity, religious freedom, and fighting government overreach. So without any further ado, I want to bring Jackson on the show here. Good morning, Jackson.
Well, good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you very much. So glad you can join us. So I'm assuming that you are in Oklahoma right now. Okay.
I am. I'm in my truck right now. So
okay. So that's cool. We got a pastor that drives a pickup truck. I'm all right with that. I'm all right with that. And from the heartland of America too. So but anyways, I just before I do want to mention that I was given some talking points, and these were good ones to get started on. But as I was mentioning off camera, Jackson, this is really, and for people that are our audience here, this is really a conversation here. So we're going to see where this leads. But we have the first talking point here. You're working through the Faith Council. I want to know how that actually even came about. Because the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the IRS in prior administrations, and I won't get too political there, but they were really being weaponized against Christians. So this is a unique turn of events. And you've been working through that Faith Council to uncover that targeting of believers. You want to explain what you found and why exactly that matters to the Christian community?
Yeah, well, religious liberty is kind of like the bedrock of the American experiment, if we'll call it that. Okay. And unfortunately, a nation founded on Judeo-Christian values has totally flipped. And under Barack Obama, accelerated.
His volume's not that high.
Can you hear me okay?
I'm hearing him okay at this end, yeah, Fred. Sure. And anybody
now I hear
okay, if anybody online, just put a comment in there. But I think you're good, Jackson. Go ahead.
Okay.
You're good. You're good.
So perfect. Anti-Christian bias and targeting really established under the Obama administration and then accelerated under Joe Biden. And so you're talking the weight of the federal government targeting people of faith, religious institutions, organizations, universities, and you got the DOJ, FBI, but especially the IRS. And President Trump, everyone was aware there was an anti-Christian bias within our federal government. I mean, that was just kind of a known thing. But President Trump wanted to unravel it, expose it, and then deal with it. And so he created the White House Faith Office. Now, other presidencies have had faith initiatives. George Bush had a faith initiative. Trump had a faith initiative in his first term, but this is a standalone office that is in the West Wing of the White House. And it's a direct report to the president himself. He's created the Christian Bias Task Force. And what's been discovered is that burrowed deep within these agencies, FBI, DOJ, IRS, ATF, there has been a systemic targeting of Christians, of religious organizations from the federal government. And thankfully, we've got a president who is ready to deal with it. And so great things are happening through the White House Faith Office. It's brand new, but it's
Yeah.
doing amazing things.
Well, let me follow that up with, because I just read this on July 7th, which just 2 days ago, as a matter of fact, the IRS filed, and I'm just going to read this off my notes. The IRS filed a joint motion with the National Religious Broadcasters Association and 2 Texas churches proposing that the Johnson Amendment, a 1954 tax code provision prohibiting tax-exempt organizations, including churches, from endorsing or opposing political candidates, should not apply to houses of worship when they communicate to their congregations during religious services on matters of faith, even if those communications touch on election politics. Since this did not come from, I'm assuming that this move by the IRS was a direct result of Trump's initiative in the development of the Faith Council. But since this did not come from the legislature, I'm curious as to the legal implications of this. You know, without legislation to codify this, does this mean that the IRS can change its mind at any time in the future and change its position? Or if another president gets in, it flips back the way it was? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we have a great victory in the now, right, under President Trump with his mandate. And now the IRS has set a precedent, but how, to your point, another administration could come in and totally try to flip the script. And so we've got work to do in this moment right here to completely eradicate and remove the Johnson Amendment. That is the goal of our president. He wants the Johnson Amendment done away with via legislation. You know, anything done with the executive pen can be undone with the executive pen. Precedents like this that are in legal cases can be challenged and changed. And so it's a victory in the now. They interpreted correctly. You realize the Johnson Amendment's never been used. I pastor a church, and we are politically engaged. I endorse candidates from behind the pulpit. My church has been reported to the IRS well over 1,000 times by people, because there's a link on the IRS that you can report a church. And we've been reported well over 1,000 times. And they've never done anything because they don't have the legal backing. The problem with the Johnson Amendment is it's in direct violation of the First Amendment. And so
Absolutely.
if the Johnson Amendment was ever legally challenged, it would be done away with. That's why the IRS has never used it, because the IRS knows if they were to use the Johnson Amendment, it would be challenged in a court of law, and the First Amendment's going to outweigh the Johnson Amendment. And so President Trump wants to get the Johnson Amendment done away with. So to your point, this is not something we have to worry about turning around under another administration.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that as long as we can keep a Republican majority in both the House and the Senate, that I won't assume. Let's hope that this legislation this will come to a point of some type of bill that would overturn that and codify it, so we can do away with it altogether. So, that's interesting. So, let me ask you this: the White House Faith Council, as I understand it, you were in the initial phases of this development. What is the actual role of this? I know it doesn't have a cabinet seat, but is it an advisory role? Tell us a little bit about what the actual Faith Council does in the White House.
The establishment of the Faith Office is to advise the president in matters that relate to, religious liberty. And there are faith directors now in all the different federal agencies. So there's a faith director that reports to the White House Faith Office. And so there is communication from the faith office to whatever agency you want to name. And so this came about because President Trump, he recognized what was happening in America and how Christians were being targeted, primarily other people of faith also, but primarily Christians. And so he made a campaign promise. And, one thing about President Trump, he's not like other politicians who promise you the world on the campaign trail and then don't deliver on anything at all once they get in office. He made this promise. He delivered on this promise. There is a White House standalone faith office, and its sole purpose, now there are many things that the office does and will do, but its primary purpose is to protect religious liberty of all people, of all faiths in the United States of America, because that is kind of what our country was built upon. That just as nobody should get in between a patient and their doctor, nobody should also get in between a person and God, especially the government.
Right. How many, what is the structure of this? I mean, how many people are on, I'm assuming they're all pastors, but how many people are on this faith council? Do you meet at the White House from time to time, or are you scheduled to? I mean, I know this is new, so you're probably developing it as you go. But,
right. It is brand new. It's brand new. But, it's really interesting. I've spent more time at the White House this year than what I ever thought I would in my entire life. And so it's been a real honor to be up there, to be in the Oval Office. And it's a small group of pastors. But the cool thing is the faith office, at the directive of the commander in chief, has already brought up over 2,000 pastors to the White House to pray, to worship, to be briefed by senior officials. And so it's been really amazing, in a very short runway. 2,000 pastors have already been up to the White House. And, what an honor it is, right? To bring pastors to the White House, giving pastors an opportunity to have influence and to be briefed. It's just tremendous.
One of the things that I was impressed with, and I know President Trump, especially in this term, has really become more transparent in the goings on in the not only the Oval Office but in cabinet meetings and so on and so forth. And I like the fact that I have seen on more than one occasion where they actually start the meetings with prayer. And it could be a pastor in the meeting. It could actually be, let's say, a member of the cabinet. I think one time I saw that. But on the same token, I thought it was funny how I might have been a CNN reporter or whatever, criticized the president for not leading the prayer, which I thought was absurd. Okay. I mean,
he's completely dumb.
Yeah, he's making huge, changes in bringing prayer and bringing faith into what's been a secular office, and people criticize him because he's not the one praying. But I love the fact that they're opening with prayer. They're calling on God for guidance. I mean, how can you speak against that?
Well,
these stories never make the press. I said, these stories never make it on the news about 2,000 pastors. They don't want you to know that there's 2,000 pastors involved. They'll never include stories about the prayer part. They even cut it off of their cast when they're covering anything that they do, because they don't want to see a pastor actually having prayer at the start of an edition. That'll usually be cut off by most news stations.
Yep.
Has there been a lot of publicity, Jackson, about the about the Faith Council? Has there been a lot? I have not. I knew it was formed, but I haven't seen much on it yet. I mean,
well, there's been negative publicity. There's not been too much. There's not been too much positive. It's all been, how dare they violate separation of church and state, and the talking points they've used for years that don't work, but they still utilize them. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's been kind of,
Mhm.
unfortunate that, to your point, it is not highlighted that the commander in chief has given the directive within the first 6 months to have 2,000 pastors. That's a lot of pastors, guys. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a ton of
That's a
pastors and faith
huge
leaders.
deal.
How many people are represented by those faith leaders? How many people make up their congregations? And so this is at the directive of the president, but it's one of those things. Whatever Trump does is wrong according to the media. So
Yeah.
if he has pastors, he's wrong.
100%.
If Trump didn't have pastors, they would make that, oh, look, he doesn't have pastors at the White House. Either way, it would be a negative spin. So, thankful for people like you all who give us the opportunity to tell the story and the good things that are happening, because CNN's not going to, and it's just,
No.
it is what it is. We know what we're up against.
Yeah. Interestingly, though, I also follow online a lot of faith-based podcasts and other shows, and I don't hear them talking about it as much either. They may have mentioned it as part of a monologue or something, but on the same token, from going forward, I think the faith community, the community of pastors all across the nation, we'll get into that, pastors for Trump, in a minute, but it's incumbent upon all of the people in the faith community to get this word out, because, like you say, to your point, like you say, the mainstream media is not going to do it, so it leaves it up to us, the alternative media, and also the people in the trenches, the you and the other pastors in the trenches, getting the word out. So and we're all in this together. All Christians, all people of faith, need to get this word out, for that matter.
True.
So
I'm impressed. 2,000 pastors. That just blows my mind.
It's a ton. It's a ton, and it's a great thing. They love it. They're given a seat at the table, which is a big deal.
If you just do the math on that, think about that. 6 months, 2,000 pastors. That's a lot of pastors going through the doors of the White House
Yeah.
on any given day. So
That's awesome.
I mentioned briefly Pastors for Trump. Now, do I understand it correctly that you organized that, or you played an integral part of organizing that?
Yeah, I was tasked with leading it for the 24 campaign, and the purpose of Pastors for Trump, it was an idea that was birthed out of how do you mobilize the largest voting bloc in America, which is the evangelical voting bloc. The problem with the evangelical voting bloc is they don't really turn out to vote. Voter turnout is dismal among that demographic. However, if evangelicals vote, it's 8 to 9 out of 10 are breaking towards the Republican nominee, whoever that would be, in this case, Donald Trump. And so the question was, how do you mobilize the largest voting bloc in the United States of America that's going to vote for Donald Trump? And so the strategy was, if we mobilized pastors, they could mobilize their congregations. So if you go mobilize a pastor, that pastor can then speak to his or her congregation. And so, we had over 10,000 pastors, all 50 states mobilized for the 24 election. And if you look at the numbers, the strategy worked. Evangelicals turned out en masse and pushed President Trump over the finish line. And so it was a good strategy. I was honored to lead the effort. It was testing at times. It was frustrating at times dealing with some pastors, but for the majority, these pastors were great. And so now they get to experience the spoils of victory and coming up to the White House and having a seat at the table and all those different things. So it was a great experience traveling the country and helping mobilize the Christian base.
That's great. That begs a question, though. I got to ask. Tell me, and our listeners, how you went from a pastor of a church in Oklahoma, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to being a patriot pastor, to being a political pastor. And these are my words, okay? From pastor to patriot pastor to political pastor. because you got to admit you're traveling in a fairly rarefied circle now with President Trump, General Flynn, Rudy Giuliani, and others that I've seen. I don't want to continue dropping names, but how does this actually? How did this come about? I mean, something had to spur this.
There was a moment. There's always they call it the tipping point, right? You're climbing, and then you tip over. It was 2020. I decided to keep my church open. The mayor of Tulsa threatened to arrest me over keeping the church open. I threatened to sue him, and we kept the church open, and that was the tipping point moment. That was how General Michael Flynn called me. Got connected with him, then the Trump family. It was it was just a whole thing because we made a decision to stay open and not shut down. And I was actually, now looking back, I'm very thankful that the mayor threatened to arrest me. If he wouldn't have done that, it would not really been anything. And so it's interesting how God can take a bad thing and turn it into a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I applaud you for that. I know Fred and I both, but I'll only speak for myself here. I never bought in once to the whole scamdemic and closing and shuttering everything, and nothing like, I wasn't threatened with arrest, but I was escorted out of buildings on more than one occasion because I refused to wear a face diaper or things of that ridiculous nature. But so your Pastors for Trump is actually all 50 states are part of that?
Yes.
Do I understand?
Yep. We have pastors in all 50 states.
Now, is this how do I want to say it? I always get on the path of, well, geez, if we got this, we got to organize it. I'm an organizational freak, I guess. But is it something that is an organized group, that you have meetings, you talk, you have a newsletter? Do you get together with these other pastors?
Yeah, so obviously during the campaign, it was much more intense of what was happening. In the now, we're getting ready for the midterms, but we're not really there yet. So now there's a newsletter updates. It's one of the mechanisms that we use to invite pastors to the White House. And so it is still there. It's kind of brewing, if that makes sense, because the purpose of it is more election based. And so we accomplished our mission in 24. And then obviously 26 will be here sooner than we think, and how important the midterms will be. And then obviously we'll get really back to it. So we're kind of in a breathing stage right now, just taking a deep breath. We got one done, getting ready for the next one.
Right. Well, now that you've got this organized, again, it begs the question, moving forward, what do you do with it? Because it's not necessarily, President Trump has been elected for his second and last time, according to the Constitution. So it's not necessarily Pastors for Trump moving forward, although that was how what the impetus was. But what is the moving forward? You talk about the midterms, and is this something that's going to grow? Where are any, I know pastors in Bradford, Pennsylvania, where we live, that, I'm not even sure they know about Pastors for Trump. Is this something that any pastor?
I know they don't.
Okay. And I know we got pastors that watch our podcast, both in Bradford and outside the city. So is this something they can also become involved in? And if so, how do they go about? Who do they contact? Maybe there's somebody listening right now that says, hey, I'd like more information.
Yeah, it's very simple. Pastors for the number 4 or FOR, pastorsfortrump.com, and all the information is there, pastorsfortrump.com. And so what we've done is we have merged Pastors for Trump into the National Faith Advisory Board. And so the National Faith Advisory Board is an ongoing effort that continues after the Trump administration. To your point, the title Pastors for Trump kind of expires at the end of unless another Trump steps up to run, then that title will
good point.
still be able to be utilized.
Exactly.
But the
Let me share the
National Faith
screen here.
Advisory Board is the steering vehicle in the now. But yeah, there's the website right there, and people can register, sign up. There's all kinds of tools that are on the website, and so yeah, that was the mechanism that we utilized to grow it. And like I said, though, unless another Trump runs, we operate obviously through the National Faith Advisory Board.
That's great. Thank you.
Trump's election is just proof. Trump's election is just proof when good people do something. For years, pastors everywhere, even all the pastors I knew, they didn't want anything to do with politics. They stayed away from politics. Oh, no, can't say anything about politics. But when good people do something, this is the result you get. And the problem is there's still pastors out there that are afraid to even come against abortion. It's pretty sad.
Oh, yeah. Being the head of pastors for Trump, I got to meet some very brave, strong, great pastors. I also got to meet some very weak, cowardly, terrible pastors in the process as well. And so it was kind of an eye-opening experience.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, that's a good segue into,
especially when they can look you in the eye and say, I don't vote for a president because of that one issue. I'm an open person. Abortion is murder. I don't know how you can even consider that just an issue.
Right.
Yeah. I want to use this as a segue into my next question. And I'll talk about your book, because I mentioned at the beginning, author and pastor, and I have your book here. I'll push it here.
Let's go.
Which is Chasing After the Wind. I got to admit, I just got this yesterday afternoon, Jackson, so I'm only on chapter 2. So I had a little bit of time. I had a little bit of time last evening to go through the forward and the intro. It's interesting that the forward was by Daryl Strawberry. How did you manage that?
Wow.
Do you know him personally?
Yeah, Daryl comes and preaches at my church about twice a year, and Daryl's personal story is a tremendous summary of the book, if that makes sense. Daryl chased the wind his entire major league career, and chasing the wind, he pursued happiness. That's what the phrase means. And his pursuit of happiness, chasing happiness, led to being suspended by the major leagues for drug abuse. He was over $3 million in debt, in prison, no driver's license, hit rock bottom. And but his entire life's been turned around. And so Daryl Strawberry is one of the greatest humans on the planet today.
Yeah. I
was a fan of his for a lot of years.
I looked through the chapter titles there. It looks like a good read. I'm going to look forward to finishing that. But I just wanted to start with this book. So this question may be answered within the pages that I haven't really got to, but chasing the wind, chasing the wrong things. And I got to think about you got congregations and pastors out there and entire denominations that have gone beyond acceptance to outright promotion of what this book might be talking about, of the wrong things, the woke, the LGBTQ plus XYZ, whatever it is, the trans lifestyle, and all the agendas that are going across the country right now. And it appears that pastors, and again, entire denominations, are not just accepting, but they're actually embracing these things. And it's almost like they forgot that there's such a thing as sin, and sin has consequences. And what can you speak to that? Why are some pastors and denominations doing this when it is so antithetical to the biblical teachings?
Well, unfortunately, I'm a believer that we might be living in kind of the last of the last days. I don't know where we are in
Hmm.
proximity to the return of Christ, but I do know the Bible talks about that in the end, there's going to be a great falling away of the people who make up the church. There's going to be such a great deception that it's just going to be incredible. And I think we're seeing that. I mean, to your point, how can you read the Bible and come to any other conclusion than life matters? How can you read the Bible and come to any other conclusion than there's two genders? There's not 97, and there's two. You just the first page of the Bible, actually. How can you read the Bible and come to a conclusion that marriage is anything other than between a man and a woman? You can't read the Bible and draw any other conclusions unless you are totally deceived and you have fallen away from the faith. And so it's kind of, I can't tell you, that Jesus Christ is going to return, next month or anything like. I don't know
Right.
when that day is, but I
No
can
one does.
see that day fastly approaching.
Yeah. One of the things I forgot to mention to you even at the beginning that we do on our StreamYard platform, we can see comments coming in on Facebook and so on. And I do have some comments in here, and I'm going to put one on the screen because this is an interesting question. I struggle with this a lot myself, but Mick mentions here, does religious freedom count if a religion takes over a city? And I mentioned that in context of the Muslim community, and I want to differentiate between the followers of a Muslim faith and radical Islam. I have my own personal feelings about the Muslim faith, and I don't want to get into that here. But the First Amendment protects them as well. But it seems like it's growing into a counterculture in this country. It's another faction that is trying to take away freedoms. I don't know if that's even something that you want to think about or talk about on this program here. But as long as Mike asked it, I figured I'd ask it.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think you make a good point. Here's the thing: you do have to separate, per se, radical Islamist from, say, an everyday Muslim. The issue that you run into, and this is it's an issue nonetheless, is the ultimate agenda of Islam is not coexistence with other individuals like ourselves. Islam is about total submission, and that is the agenda, and that's implemented through Sharia law. So the thing that people have to realize is that the First Amendment doesn't protect Sharia law in the United States of America. That is not our legal system. However, if you are a pretty aggressive Muslim, you want to implement Sharia. I mean, you see some of these examples like down in Texas. They want their own area to govern themselves under Sharia law. And the problem that you really run into is Islam does not mesh with our Western value system. The two, they
There you go.
don't mix together. That's not to say you cannot have Muslims living within the West. You can, but you cannot try to take Islam and superimpose it upon the West, because the way we think, the way that we operate our values, they listen, guys, this has been a war for 1400 years. And it's the cultures don't mesh. And that's not to say that all Muslims are terrible people that are terrorists. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying the value system. They have the freedom to practice their faith in this country, but they do not have the right to impose their faith in this country because it doesn't mesh.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
the
if you
idea
read parts of Islam, go ahead. When you're reading it, if you read the Quran, where's the peace in it? They're going to kill you. Period. You don't agree, you die. You don't believe in the way they do, you die. There is no peace in Islam. If you look at their religion, the Quran. I mean, the Quran.
Well, it's a historical fact that Islam was birthed out of violence. Islam only expands through violence. Christianity expands through what we call evangelism. I share my faith with you. You make a decision. Do you want to be a Christian or not? Islam doesn't spread in that manner. Islam spreads through conquering, and you submit. And that's why I just say, not attacking Islam, not attacking
Me
all
either.
Muslims. But the reality is, the doctrine of their faith. It's very clear. You know, it's just like how the Bible is very clear on some things. Islam is very, very clear. It is about implementing Sharia law worldwide. That's the ultimate agenda, and that's their end game goal. And so Sharia law just doesn't, you know, I don't want to live under Sharia law. That's just me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know
Yeah.
about you guys. I personally do not.
Yeah.
Nope.
I agree
Nope.
100% on that. And you're right. It's, you know, the only way they could accomplish their goals is to eradicate every other belief system. And that our belief system is one of those that they want to eradicate. You know, there is no coexistence between of Christianity and Muslims
Mhm.
in their ideology. So, oh, we lost Jackson. We lost
You went
your
black.
video. You went black. I don't know if you're still on there. Can you hear us? Uh-oh. We shouldn't have brought up the Muslim thing.
Oh yeah, they're attacking now.
We lost him.
Maybe he's gonna
Looks
come
like-
back. I thought I saw a circle.
Looks like he's trying to come back on. We just got to get his video going.
When I've heard people when you break down the Quran, that there is no peace between the Quran and Christianity. It's just not going to happen according to the Bible, that their version of their Bible that they read. It's not the Bible, their Quran. It's just, there's no unity between the two.
Yeah. Like in Tom mentions here, I'll just put it up on the screen. That's why the Bill of Rights states freedom of religion. Everybody, it's not, and that's a misnomer or misunderstanding. It's not freedom from religion, it's freedom of religion. Everybody in this country has the right to practice the faith of their choice without
Right.
interference from the government. And
But nowhere in the Constitution does it say if you have a different religion, you are a right to have your own territory, your own land, your own property, and no one can come in and change it. So we can change the laws of how we believe.
Yeah, we lost Jackson here for a minute. Hopefully he'll kind of reboot and come back on. But in the meantime, I do. There he is. Yeah, made it back.
I have no idea what just happened. I was talking about Islam and then boom, disappeared.
I say this all the time, although it was on your phone or that happened, obviously, but we've noted in the past, whenever we start talking about controversial subjects, which is quite often on our podcast, that Facebook and starts messing with us, and the internet goes wonky, and so this is nothing unusual for us, Jackson. We're experienced with these kind of interruptions here, but yeah, thank you for that explanation. As a matter of fact, Christy on here had just put a comment up there that she thought your explanation was spot on. So that's
Perfect.
That's good. Thank you. So, hey, you just mentioned the 24 election, the role you folks played, the pastors for Trump. In the 26, we have an off year election, what we call an off year, in 25 here, but there are still some important races going on in Pennsylvania. There's judgeships, there's retention votes, and so on. So it's one of those things that I don't think we can ever, and I think that's one of the problems the Republican Party has had, or the conservatives in general, is that we get a victory, then we rest on our laurels for a little bit. But I think we're finding now there is no time to rest because
Right.
we got, before you know it, the primary for the 26th election is just around the corner. So there's no time to sit back and rest. Or is your organization Pastors for Trump, or however you're going to rebrand yourself, if you do? And again, I go by this. I'm just an organization freak. Me ask my wife; I drive her crazy. But are there any things that you're discussing, to promote national candidates, or to promote get out and vote, or to try to get people registered to vote? Because sadly, just in our county, McKean County, Pennsylvania, during the primary of this year, I think our total vote was only about 17% of the registered voters. And it's sad. I mean, people think religion and politics should not play together. But
Yes, it should.
don't we as Christians have a responsibility to stand up in our country for our beliefs and our values? And what is the pastor's role? What is faith's role in politics?
Well, I think it's impossible to separate yourself from your faith, and it's also impossible to separate yourself from politics. Those are two of the most important things in your life. They're also the two things that you're told never to talk about, right? The two most important things you're told never to talk about. How ironic is that? But the role of the pastor is to train and equip the saints to go out and do the work of the ministry. What's the work of the
Absolutely.
ministry? We're to be salt, and we're to be light. What does salt do? Salt preserves. Our culture
Exactly.
is decaying. Our culture is on a full-blown decay. And our role as Christians is to help preserve traditional values. That's what salt does. And we're told that we're to be light. It's very dark in our culture. It's very dark in our government. And the only way that there will ever be light within those arenas is Christians have to invade them, because Christians are the light of the world, representing Jesus Christ, who's the ultimate light of the world. And so we have to be involved. We have to be engaged. Jesus said something interesting. He told his followers to occupy until he returns. That word occupy, that's a military word. It is a
Right.
foreign army occupying a foreign land. This is not our home as Christians. We are foreigners passing by, but we are to occupy, meaning we are to totally be engaged like a foreign military would in a foreign land. We're to occupy until he returns. And so being able to occupy requires involvement and engagement. And so pastors have to step up. That's been our message. You have to step up. Now, the beautiful thing is, pastors cannot fall to the age-old excuse. Well, I can't because the IRS will come after me. Well, the IRS just said they will not come after you. You're just fine, pastor. Let's get on. Let's get involved.
Yeah, preparing for the podcast today, I was thinking earlier, it was kind of interesting thought. I don't know exactly how to frame this, but you've got pastors on both sides of this issue that are speaking to their conversations. And actually, the term that came to my mind is pulpit war, which is like an oxymoron, because it really shouldn't be a war in the pulpit, but you have preachers speaking out, as you are, that we need to be involved. We got other preachers that are preaching on, as we talked about a minute ago, on inclusivity and equity and watering down the gospel, and don't talk politics. How often have we heard pastors say, our world is in heaven, this world doesn't, we're only wayfaring strangers here, so don't concern yourself with worldly things, only think of heavenly things. So I see a little struggle just in religion itself or faith itself and the preachers that are in the pulpits. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's a misguided approach. Everyone in the Bible, that great heroes of the Bible, they were engaged in their actual world that they lived in. And a lot of the Bible is all about politics. Joseph was the prime minister of Egypt. He was a politician, and he saved the known world during that day. Moses dealt with politics and Pharaoh. He also was a politician. Daniel was an advisor to politicians. King David literally was a politician. You could go on and on. If you remove the politics out of the Bible, you don't really have much left in the Bible. And so to say, well, we shouldn't engage today, well, that's just nonsensical, because here's the reality. And I actually have to hop off here with this. I have a meeting I got to run to, guys. It's been
Okay.
great, but this is where I'd like to end. People say, why do politics matter? Politics matter because politics forms policy, and policy directly impacts the lives of people. So here's the Christian saying that we love God, we love people. Well, if you love people, then you need to help shape policy, because policy impacts people for good or for bad. And how do you shape policy? It is done through the arena of politics. You cannot shape policy if you do not first win the political battle. You win the political battle like we did in 24. Now we can shape policy. And when you shape policy, it will impact the lives of people. Example being, we engaged politically in 2024 with Donald Trump. We have helped shape policy. The result is Planned Parenthood has been defunded. That's a huge, huge victory that impacts people directly. But that would have never had that impact if we would not have engaged politically.
Absolutely. Well said.
Now,
Well said.
before you go, I can't find his book on the internet. How can you get his book again?
I found it on Amazon. That's why I ordered
It's on
Oh, it's on Amazon. Okay.
Barnes and Noble, but it's also on my website, jacksonlawmeyer.com. You can go to my website and it's on there as well. So it is out there. It is out there. I appreciate you guys a lot.
Yeah. One of these days, if we get a chance to meet in person, I want you to sign my book.
Absolutely. You can count on it, man.
Be-
I don't know if
before
it'll
you-
increase its value. It may decrease
Yeah.
its value, but I'll do it for you.
Before we let you go, we always end our podcast in prayer. I want to, and Fred is our resident prayer. I want him to pray us out
The
and hold you up.
pastor.
So go ahead, Fred.
Oh, but there's a pastor in the room. I feel like, okay, never mind.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
You do it.
All right. Thank you, Lord, for this meeting and these and the pastor here. Lord, I ask you to put a hedge of protection around him, keep the enemy from trying to get to him. And I just ask, Lord, you continue to bring the darkness, bring the truth to darkness. I'm sorry, bring the light over the darkness, Lord, that the enemy would not try to deceive, confuse your people, Lord. We know that your pastor is that he's doing a good job, Lord. I ask you to keep him safe. And also, Lord, you give us wisdom and understanding that we would make the right decisions, but we would be open to your will, not our will, that we would trust your word and do what you're supposed to be doing, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Jack-
Amen.
Jackson,
Guys, I appreciate you a lot.
Yep. Let's stay in touch. Thank you very much for coming on. right.
Awesome. You guys be blessed.
All right. You too. Bye. All right. That was a good
Good.
conversation. I didn't know we were leaving it at 8:45. He didn't tell me that he had a time constraint, so he kind of caught me off guard there a little bit. But I did read the book, and it is, part of the book so far. It seems like an interesting read. It is an easy read, but Jackson, he's kind of a unique individual. He's the blending of faith and politics, which, as he said, is absolutely biblical, actually. So, and that's why we always at the end say that, we need people to engage in politics or we will not have a free country. And I'll go one step further on that, is that we need faithful people of faith to be in politics. I know, and this is a standing joke in our, unfortunately, in our family. I don't have to worry about saying this because I know she would never watch this podcast, but I've got a stepdaughter that is as far left leaning as I am far right leaning. And
Wow.
it got so to the point where my wife laid down the law and says, when you two are in the house together, we cannot speak about politics. Okay. So we're kind of banned from that discussion to save peace in the family and also to save my wife's sanity. But
love
it is, it does, it does divide people, it does divide families, but it's important that as Christians we have like Pastor said, we have an obligation. We're to occupy until Jesus returns, and that occupation means doing the right things to help his people and to help. I still believe that the United States was founded on Christian principles. I mean, I know there's a lot of debate about was this guy a deist, was this guy a Christian, that's minutia. We were founded as a country on biblical Christian values, and the reason that we are in the shape that we're in right now in this country is we've gone so far away from those values. It's like, oh, we can't talk about Christianity, we can't talk about Jesus Christ being Lord and Savior. That no, we're supposed to talk about that. We're supposed to say it when we go to a city council meeting or a school board meeting or any out in the public square. We're to live our faith, wear our faith on our sleeve, and let people know that the right way is through our faith. I don't know how you separate the two, Fred. I know I talk a lot more than you do. Feel free to jump in.
And if you look at the Constitution, a lot of the Constitution is based off a lot of Christian value. People don't want to do it. Just take a little trip to DC and look around at all the monuments and see how much scripture you see on the walls, on the buildings, or on everything. So you're trying to separate something that was created based on biblical value.
Yeah. Hey, I want to give a shout out before we leave here. We got a couple minutes left. Just our friend Kelly and I always say Kelly from Washington State. And I do that because we also have another Kelly in Warren County here in Pennsylvania. So Kelly, it's great to see you on. Tom, as always, great to see you. Christy, thank you for your comments. I'm glad you stopped. And Mick, thank you for being on. Tammy got on. As a matter of fact, I was on a text with Tammy earlier and told her and Bruce, Tammy's husband, is a pastor of a church over in Eldred. So I definitely wanted them to know that Jackson was going to be on. Diane, great to see you on this morning. I'm seeing who else is on here. Let's see here. Dorothy's was on this morning, and our other friend Kelly from Warren was on. So it was a great. I didn't have a chance to put a lot of the comments on here, so I appreciate everybody's comments here, because
tell your pastors about Pastors for Trump.
Well, yeah, tell them. As a matter of fact, I'll be talking to a few of them that I know. I didn't know about that pastorsfortrump.com or .org, whatever it was. I did look it up here. It is pastorsfortrump.com. So if you know a pastor, tell them about that. So, hey, I know we don't normally ever close early, but it is. It is 9:54. And we didn't really prepare. I didn't prepare any other material for after Jackson left us because I thought we were going to go the full hour. But I'll tell you, we already prayed ourselves out of here. Wherever you are, we hope that you have a wonderful day, and that the only good things come your way, and that you be blessed.
And be a blessing to others.
Yeah, that timing difference is because of the lag time between it's not like Jim and I were sitting next to each other and we could say it immediately. So yes, be blessed and be a
I would
blessing.
literally have to say it as you're ending it.
Yeah, yeah, right. Exactly. So for everybody out there, thank you so much for joining us today, because as we've always said, this podcast is for you. It's not for us. We do this for you. That's why we want your comments. That's why we want you to participate. So I think next week, unless something happens, we'll be back to just normal current events, discussing current events, and I don't think we have a guest lined up for next week. So hopefully you'll be able to join us next week for another good discussion. So for now, have a wonderful day.